In today's video, we're going to do something interesting. So I was thinking about what are the classifications in terms of cultures and how Realpolitiks, especially Realpolitiks 1 and 2, is going to classify each country depending on the civilization and their culture. So we're going to go for parts. We're going to begin in America. We're going to go into Eurasia. And finally, we're going to go into a place that I am not very well versed, which is Africa. And we're going to go into the area of Asia as well. How these classifications have changed in between the two first games. So let's begin with America. Here in America, we have obviously United States, and over here you're going to see cultures and civilization. According to Realpolitiks 1, we have America as a Western civilization, and the culture is American. The Canadians, though, they are going to be Canadian, French Canadian, which kind of makes sense, and then we have Western civilization. Pretty cool. Let's go ahead and let's begin with what is universally known as Latin America, which is going to be this area over here, including all of South America. So we begin in Mexico. In Mexico, we see that the culture here is Mexican and the civilization is Latin America. So then we go here in this other country and we can see that here it changes to the culture as mestizo. Now, you can see here culture Mexican, and here we have culture mestizo. It is changing the culture. Let me just see what happens here. In Belize, we have mestizo. Now, in this part of the world, mestizo thing is someone that has a mix ancestors in between the Native Americans and the Europeans. At least at this point, the game is nailing it, kinda. Everything here from all of these countries in Central America, they are still Latin American, but we have differences here. For example, when we reach Costa Rica here, we see Castizo. Then we go here and we see Caribbean. From Panama, we start seeing Caribbean in culture. Even now, Cuba has a exclusive culture, Cuban being Latin American. In Jamaica, we see Jamaican. In Haiti, we see Haitian. Here we see Dominican. So, because I would assume this is happening here because they are island countries that perhaps they have isolated cultures, and that is the reason the developer decided to place these countries as their own culture, if you know what I mean. Then we have the Puerto Rican. Interestingly enough, it says here culture American and civilization Western just because it's part of the United States. But in real life, this area here should have been civilization Latin American and culture their own Puerto Rican culture. Now, over here we cannot click the little islands in the Caribbean here, so we're going to ignore them all the way here. So let's see, and let's continue with Colombia. Colombia, we have Colombian mestizo. It is a mix of both, which is kind of weird. Then we see here, again, in Ecuador, we see culture mestizo and civilization Latin American. Everything here is going to be Latin American, by the way, just when we reach here, which is basically France, but that's special case. We have here mestizo Amerindian. In the case of Peru, which is pretty interesting, we see here that instead it has Amerindian mestizo, which is Bolivia. Down here we see Chile, and Chile we have Chilean and Latin American. Now, pretty interesting to note is that Ecuador and even Colombia have the mestizo thing that is apparently something that has to be in regard of Central America. With Argentina, we have Argentinian Latin America. So basically everything that goes further down here, we start to see that they are kind of their own thing. With the exception of Paraguay here, which they are culture mestizo as well. Uruguayan, which is their own culture. And then we have here Brazilian Latin American. Let's move here into the northern area of the Atlantic. This area is an island. They have their own culture, but the culture here in Greenland is Danish. Now let's move on into Europe here. In the United Kingdom, British, Welsh, Scottish, and Irish. Western, everything here is going to be Western. Over here we can see that this is going to be culture Irish, Western. Here we see Spanish, Galician. Interestingly enough, we don't have in here the Catalonian. With Portugal, we have Portuguese Western. Over here we see France with French and Western. By the way, France, it should have more than one culture. But for those that are French in here, let us know in the comments what other cultures should have been included in here. We have Belgium. Belgium is going to be interesting. Even though Belgium is a mix in between Dutch and French, here we see just culture Belgium. And here we see Dutch in the Netherlands. Let's continue here with Germany. We see German, Western. We see here with Denmark, Danish. We see the Norwegian and obviously the Swedish. Over here we see Finland, which is Finnish. With Poland we can see Polish, Silesian. Over here we see the Czech Republic, which is, by the way, called Czechia here, which is Czech in here. Austria we see Austrian. In here we see Swiss, German, French. No Italian in here. And we see civilization Western. In Italy we see Italian Western. The Croatians are Croatians. Slovenians are Slovenians. Hungary, Hungarian. Slovakia, Slovak. Let's move to Romania, Romanian. Serbia we see Serbian. Down here in Montenegro, Montenegrin. Albanian for Albania. Kosovo has Albanian and Albanian in between Albania and Kosovo. Macedonian in here, and the Greek. Continuing here we see Bulgarian. We can see here the Turkish, and here changes of course to Islamic evidently. Here we see Ukrainian with civilization Orthodox, which is going to be the same for the Russians. The Russians have here Orthodox, and they have a mix in between Belarusian and Russian. The interesting thing about Russia here is that Russia does not combine anything that goes here into Siberia. We see Kazakhstan, which is a Kazakh, and of course Islamic. Uzbekistan is Islamic Uzbek. We go to Turkmen, Islamic, and Iran is Persian Islamic. Azerbaijani here. In Armenia we have Armenian and Georgian, which is pretty good. Here we see Iraqi and Arabian. Saudi Arabia, Arabian. United Arab Emirates is going to be Arabian Islamic. Here we see Arabian, another Arabian. Everything that is on the peninsula is going to be Arabian. Cyprus, you can see Greek Turkish, which is, by the way, here, I'm going to make a pause here. It is quite accurate. And here we have a mix in between Western and Islamic. For Syria, we have Syriac, Arabian, and Kurdish. For Lebanon, we have Arabian. Here we have Jewish Western. Over here we have, I just did this one, Arabian Islamic. We can go here to Egyptian Arabian. Over here we can see Arabian Berber. Arabian Berber. Everything here now in North Africa is going to start to be Islamic. Here we go to Berber with Algeria and Morocco. We see Berber as well. Mauritania we see Berber, and if we go down here, we start to see Mande, Bantonid, Bantonid. Here we see Bantonid, Mande, African. The civilization here is going to change to African. Bantonid, Ghana, Guinean. Here we see Nigeria and Guinean as well. In Cameroon we see Bantu, Mande, and Zara. We continue here. I don't think we're going to do all of them because there are a lot of countries. So we continue into the southern tip of Africa, and we see Namibia, which is Khoisan and Bantu. Botswana here is going to be, again, Khoisan and Bantu with civilization African. South Africa is going to be Afrikaner, Bantu, and Western African. Let's go to Madagascar. We can see that Madagascar is Austronesian and Islamic. We're going to go in. There should be a country here, but we cannot click in here. Let's continue here with India. For example, in India, we see there's a lot of here. There's a lot of them here. Hindustani, Punjabi, Dravidian, Bengali, Marathi, Kashmiri. We see Hindu and Islamic, a combination of both. In Pakistan, we see Punjabi and Hindu. In Afghanistan, we see Afghan Islamic. We can continue here in Nepal, Nepalese, Hindu, and Bhutan is basically Bhutanese. Bangladesh, we have Bengali. What I don't want to open here is conflict here. I'm not doing this to create conflict. I'm just for fun trying to see if this thing is accurate or not, because it is a game that I really like. So let's continue here. We see here that in China we have Han, Thai, and Mongolian, and the culture is Sinic, which is the Asiatic Chinese culture. Go to Mongolia, you see that the culture here is Mongolian, and the civilization is Sinic. You can see in North Korean, you see Korean, and South Korea, you also see Korean. Interestingly enough, in this area, the game is not making a distinction in between North Korea and South Korea, which I would have thought that would have been the intention of the developer. Here in the Republic of China, we see Taiwan, we see Han, Thai, Mongolian, and exactly the same as we have here in mainland China. In Vietnam, we see Kin and Thai. In the Sinic Cambodia, we see Khmer. In Brunei here, we see Malaysian, Singaporean, Austronesian, and Philippines, we see Tagalog, Visayan, Austronesian. Finally, Australia has Western as the culture. Let's see New Zealand. New Zealand is New Zealander as the culture, and Western in civilization. This is basically Hawaiian. I would assume that this would have been good to have this as a country with a specific culture as Hawaiian. I would have added that. Yeah, the last one that we haven't checked in this area, apart from the other countries here that are plenty of, that we have a lot of them, we have here, the culture here is Japanese and the civilization is Japanese. Now let's have a look at Solomon Island here. It is Melanesian here and Western. We didn't check all of the countries here in Realpolitiks 1 because there are plenty. I think that for what we are doing here, I think this is just enough. Now let's go to Realpolitiks 2 and let's have a look at what are the differences in between the two games and if they stay with the same classification through the second installment. So now here in Realpolitiks 2, we can see that United States of America has the differentiation here in which instead of cultures and civilizations, it is listed here as accepted cultures and accepted civilizations. This is the slight change that they made here. And for the country of the United States of America, we have Yankee, Dixie, and Californian. It is separating Californian as an actual culture. For the civilization, we have as well the Western civilization. In Canada, we see the French Canadian and the Canadian, which is pretty much the same thing that we have seen before. And where I think that everything is going to start changing is going to be here in the Hispanic America section here. For Mexico, we have the Mexican culture and the Latin American. So we're going to go down in here. But before going into Central America, we're going to go here in the area of the Caribbean. We have Cuban as well, which is the same. And over here we can see the Jamaicans, which is the culture Jamaican. We have the Haitians, Dominicans, and we continue here with the same structure in which Puerto Rico is the United States of America eventually. Something different in Realpolitiks 2 is the fact that you can here select small islands here. I think that it is also taking each of them separately, so you can see that the flags are appearing in here. Here we see Indo-Caribbean, but for some reason here we see the Indo. If someone knows something about the Trinidad and Tobago actual culture or civilization, please confirm this. In the others, we see that it is African, basically for all of the Caribbean islands, for the exception of Jamaica. So now we're going to go here. Venezuela has Venezuelan mestizo. It doesn't changes. Colombian mestizo is still the same, and Ecuador has the same mestizo. Amerindian here in Peru and Bolivia stays the same. Chilean and Argentinian, including here Uruguayan, and in this area for Paraguay they changed it. They added Amerindian here. Brazilian for the area of Brazil. We have as well, of course, Latin American, Indo-Caribbean here, and civilizations here in Guyana, Indo. We have Indo for civilizations in Suriname, and here we have Western French Walloon. Let's go ahead and check Panama. It's Caribbean. Costa Rica has the same mestizo and castizo. Nicaragua and all of Central America still have the mestizo, but there has been a change here in Guatemala, in which you see mestizo and the addition of Amerindian. Continuing here in Europe, we see the United Kingdom with the standard Irish, Scottish, Welsh, and English. In here we have the Irish, the Western civilization for the Irish. Let's have a look at Iceland, Icelandic as the culture, and here stays as Danish and Western civilization. Norwegian for Norway, Swedish in cultures and Western still is Western, and Danish here. Finland is Finnish and still stays as Western. Obviously here Latvian is Western. Here we have Lithuanian. Culture in Poland, we have Polish, German in Germany. And the interesting thing starts here. Netherlands is Dutch and Flemish. Belgium has been changed for Flemish and Walloon, which I would say that it is more correct. And here we have French and Walloon. Here we still have Spanish and Galician, no trace of the Catalonians, but they have added Andorra here as a small little country. For Portugal, we have Portuguese and Berber for the Islamic Moroccans. The Algerians have Arabian, Berber, and Tuareg. Tunisia is Arabian. The Libyans are Arabian, Berber, and Togo, and the Egyptians are Arabian as well as Egyptians. Italy, no change in there. Austrian with the culture of Austria. Czechia, here we have the Czech. And Slovakia, we have Slovaks, Hungarians, and the Romanians. Going down here, we continue with the Serbians, the Montenegrians, the Macedonians, and Kosovo stays as Albanian, including Albania. The Greeks are Greek, of course, and the Turkish are Islamic. Continuing here, we can see Moldovians. They are separated from the Romanians, and Ukrainians are Orthodox in civilization. And when we reach now to Belarusians, we still have Orthodox and Russians, which change in this as only Russians. I really welcome the fact that the culture here in Russia has been comprised in single Russian, because if you are not going to include anything else that appears in this part of the world, I think that is the best decision here. For the Kazakhstan, we have the Kazakh, we have Uzbek as the Uzbeks in Uzbekistan, Turkmen in Turkmenistan, and then we have here an addition of Azerbaijani with the Iranians. We have the Armenians. Down here in Iraq, we have the Iraqi, Arabian, and Kurdish. The Syrians have Syriac and Arabian, and we have here Rojava, unrecognized, Syriac, Kurdish, Arabian. We continue here with Saudi Arabia, with Arabians, and everything else, it's pretty much Arabian. We see Pakistan here. Pakistan is continuing being as a Punjabi and Pashtun as culture, and they have Islamic Hindu. Afghans are Pashtun. In the case of India, they have splitted India in much more different cultures like Assam, Goa, Gujarati, Hindustani, Kannada, Malay, Manipuri, Marathi, Nisi, Oriya, Punjabi, Rajasthani, Tamil, and Telugu. With Nepal, we have the culture of Nepalese, and they are into. Bhutanese stay the same. Then we have Bengali in Bangladesh. We continue here with Bamar and Shan in cultures for Myanmar. The Vietnamese are Kin and Thai. They stay as cultures the same as the ones that we saw in Realpolitiks 1. In the case of China, the People's Republic of China, you can see that they are now Han and Thai. And interesting is the fact that the Republic of China, which is Taiwan, they are only Han instead of Han and Thai. In the previous iteration of the franchise, we saw here that they added Mongolia here, but they have excluded Mongolia here. But in Mongolia, they have added Mongolian as the culture. Let's have a look at North Korea with Korean and Korean in here. There's no distinction in between them, but they are still scenic in civilization. Just Japanese, they still have the Japanese as a distinctive culture and distinctive civilization. We have Tagalog and Visayan, and over here we have the Papuan, the Austronesian, and Australians. Australians are Western, of course. Let's have a look at New Zealand, New Zealander, and Western civilization. In Realpolitiks 2, we have the possibility to select different other islands. This is the Kiribati, which are Polynesians. We can go for the Marshall Islands, which are Micronesians. Madagascar here is Malagasy, and here we see the one island that we were not able to select in Realpolitiks 1. And the island is Mauritius. This is an island that I was pretty much missing in Realpolitiks 1. This is Mauritius, and the accepted culture is Creole, and they have the African civilization over here. Did we talked about Afrikaner and Bantu in here? Everything that is South Africa, we see Bantu, Khoisian, Afrikaner. You can see here in Zimbabwe Bantu, and we can go for Bantu in Mozambique. Everything that has to do with this part of Africa, we see Guinean African, Guinean, Fula, and Mande. Here we see Guinean, Mande, Fula, Mande, and Wolof in Senegal. We see in Mauritania, Tuareg, Arabian, and Berber, and in Mali we see Fula and Tuareg as well. In Chad we see Kanuri and Zara. In Sudan we see Arabian and Islamic. We go here in Djibouti and we see Cushitic, Islamic, and finally in Somalia we see Somali Islamic. Going down into Kenya to see the cultures of Bantu, Cushitic, Nilotic, and African Islamic. So guys, thank you for watching this video. I think that this video was kind of interesting to show you how Realpolitiks treats all of these countries. If you think that these cultures are correct, or you think that there should be an addition of something to a specific country, or do you want to add something, feel free to comment and give us your insight in this topic. I think it's an interesting topic if we are people that like to see at maps, and especially if they are maps of the world. I think that it's interesting to see how the developers classified all of the populations in the games that we like. Don't forget to subscribe. This was Victus. See you in the next one.